me to start and then hand it off to you? Or do you want to do the whole thing?
Sure.
Have it.
We have 5 minutes to burn anyway before the public hearing. Information.
Right.
Okay, 6 o'clock, call the meeting to order. I'd like to welcome the council members here for this joint session. The public hearing doesn't officially start till 6:05, so we will go through the consent agenda, which is our minutes from our last meeting in July.
If there's no discussion, I'd make a motion to approve the minutes from the July 21st, 2025 Planning Board meeting.
And I second it.
Okay, I have a motion from Bill to approve the minutes and the second from Randy. Any other discussion?
Mr. Chair, I would just note that the council, because this is mostly a planning meeting, we will not be voting on any of these things, so don't be waiting for a yay or a nay from us.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
All those in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passed. Okay, informational reports, page 9 in our packet, which goes through the building permit reports. Jennifer, any updates?
So, we are roughly about, 115 permits. June was extremely light this year. Extremely light, probably the lightest June we've ever had. However, it is September, and September, October, we issue probably twice as many as we do all summer. We have quite a few damage building permits going out, roofs, siding, roofs. There is some maintenance going on, decks, patios, windows, things like that. But lately, the last couple weeks, a lot of permits have gone out. I think I'm on permit number 126. So it's just, and that's typical for Painesville. We tend to pick up in the fall. But yes, there was some storm damage. I think between 2 storms, we had some significant. We did have some people that came through town wanting to be contractors. People, we had some people complain a little bit about it, and we said, call us, we can tell you if they're certified, if they're licensed, things like that. So just keep your eyes and ears open for that. The last 3 days, I have been calling open building permits, trying to shake them up just a little. Brad is out the rest of this week, so I told him on the 23rd I was hoping to have 20 people on a schedule. So I've got 4. It's a good start. But it's tough to get a hold of people, so I'm hoping to make a few calls yet tonight because I can get them after hours and after supper. So that's kind of the building permit report.
Jennifer, just a quick question. When those, what I call storm chasers, come around trying to checking on the roofs, do they need a peddler's license to do that?
If they're going door to door, they're supposed to. Yeah.
I had some stop and I asked them and they said they did, and I asked her to see it and they said, oh, we left it in our car. So I'm just curious.
Yeah, so if they're peddling door to door, that's a solicitor.
Okay.
If they go to the local lumber yard or they go to one of our contractors or call them, that's a little different,
Yeah.
if the actual homeowner's reaching out. But if they're going door to door, just like any other solicitor, they're supposed to get a solicitor's license.
And you are seeing some of those go out?
I don't process any of those, so they go through the police department and they're tackled through Paul and Tarek, so I typically wouldn't see them. If they're coming here to get a license, I assure you that they're paying the fee to get one.
I would say, Bill, having the police chief's cell phone number helps a lot when they're standing there, because I just let them know that I'm going to verify.
Yeah.
They go away real quick.
They run away. Yeah. These guys had kind of that look on their face, but
Yeah.
just curious.
And it's a $500 permit because we need to investigate to make sure that, there's safe people in our neighborhoods and making sure that, I guess we do our due diligence and do a little investigating to make sure our community is safe.
Yeah, I mean, I understand the process, and yeah, I didn't know the fee, so yeah, that's interesting. I appreciate your info.
Okay, thank you. And then just a reminder, our next meeting is October 20th at 6 o'clock, if business is needed. So we'll get information from Jennifer at that point if we need to have a meeting. Okay, it's exactly 6:05. We'll call a public hearing for the purpose of discussing apartment buildings needing a conditional use permit in the C1 Central Business District. We thank you, the residents here that would like to speak. We ask that you please go to the podium, state your name and address for the record for our minutes. And we could go in order, so everyone go first. I will read a statement that was submitted in by Councilmember Herzberg, who wasn't able to be here tonight, so I can get going with that. Unfortunately, I'll be out of town on city business and will not be able to attend the meeting tonight. I am submitting this letter with my thoughts on the apartment development question that was proposed. Should a conditional use permit be issued or allowed as it is now? I will approve the conditional use permit for any new and existing apartments if resold in order to study floor layouts and updated repairs. I would also like to add that all commercial downtown buildings should be conditional use permitted in order to not allow warehousing and storage of personal collections. Please enter into the record. Thank you, Senior Council Member, Mayor Pro Tem Neil Herzberg. Anyone that wishes to speak can do so now.
Jeb Johnson, address 12608 212th Avenue Northeast, New London. I am the chairman of the Downtown Street Improvement Committee and vice president of Perennial Bank downtown here as well. Thanks for taking the time to hear us on this issue. We ask that we ask for this change. So thanks for the opportunity to hear us out on this. Our original purpose of our committee was to prepare for the 2027 street improvement project. It's now been scheduled for 2029. But our purpose has broadened a little bit because no other entity was focused on just specifically the downtown. So our goal is a more vibrant downtown. We're optimistic about the future of the downtown and want to encourage any actions that will preserve the commercial character of the downtown. Downtown businesses are interdependent upon each other. The more businesses there are, the better it is for all of them. And we think the current ordinance, as it's structured, has the potential to weaken the commercial character of the downtown because it allows vacant retail buildings to easily be converted into apartment use. The current ordinance states that apartments within a retail building are only allowed above, below, or behind the retail business. No apartments on the street level. However, a loophole exists that allows a vacant building to be exempted because it is no longer a retail building, therefore allowing the apartments on the front street level. Although it seems pretty clear that conflicts with the original intent of the ordinance. We're not against apartment buildings at all, or mixed-use buildings, and in fact encourage those types of buildings in our downtown. We don't want to burden existing building owners, and requiring a conditional use permit for apartment use would not affect those already operating that way. The change to require CUPs for apartment use would allow the Planning Commission and the Council to further examine the change and determine if it's appropriate. You would have the chance to review things such as parking, safety, access roads, traffic concerns, and the effect that change would have on the neighboring properties. The Planning Commission and Council could recommend approval, denial, or approval with conditions. And in some cases, it may be appropriate, and the best use of that property to be converted to an apartment use might be the right thing to do. And this, I think, leaves the door open for that. We saw that, we've talked about it in the past with the old funeral home building. There wasn't a lot of options left for that building, and it seems to function well as an apartment. So it's good to leave that door open. So why does this matter to us, I guess, as committee members and downtown property owners? Because as I said, downtown businesses are stronger when there's more businesses down there together. and they rely on each other for strength. So as we lose those commercial businesses, the remaining businesses get weaker. Compared to a shopping mall, if some of those businesses in a shopping mall were to become apartments, what effect would that have on the remaining businesses? They'd lose their value. A downtown's not a lot different than that. So we want to preserve that commercial character, and we want to keep those businesses strong. So I think a little further analysis of that change is valid and important in this situation. Thank you.
Any other comments from the public?
Mr. Chair, if I may. Oh, sorry, I didn't see Joe. I should look up once in a while.
My name is Joe Voss. I live in 329 Pomeroy Avenue in Painesville, retired. My question or comment on this is that any change to any zoning ordinance of any kind, whether it's building heights or closer to property lines, will always require a conditional use permit, and that this is no different in that if we're going to stray away from the original intent of the ordinances, that should be required. Because I ask myself, can anyone tell me why is anyone attempting to skirt around the zoning of apartments? Subsection B states no apartment living quarters are allowed on the front street level, as Jeb had pointed out. And if that logic of that is ignored, it says strictly it should be no living quarters are allowed on the front. If that logic is ignored, where do the eventual occupants of the apartments on street level park? With the bicycles, garbage containers, and all the other things that go along with additional parking on the street level. And then also, where does that fit in the Painesville strategic plan, which the council authorized and it was completed in 2024, which they have the core strategy on paragraph 2 that states the goal is to revitalize and reinvent downtown, and then also to attract and support businesses. Doesn't really say anything at all about any other type of thing. So the common sense notion that existing business can exist, flourish and grow and with other businesses that create traffic. They need the traffic, they need other businesses to do that. Apartments or warehousing or anything else does not cause any traffic to help the other existing businesses. So that's pretty much exactly what Jeb explained, and that's my viewpoint on that. So that's why I support the change for the, or at least the addition on there for the conditional use permit.
I just wanted to talk a little bit, Sean Ranke, Mayor, 701 Cronus, the history of this. When I came onto council, we were just finishing up the ordinance codification updating process. And everything had been gone through by a committee and revised and approved, except for the zoning ordinance. And then we sat on the zoning ordinance for a few years, and until we approved it in, what, 23? I think is when we finally got... 24, the zoning ordinance went through. So this was changed, and Jennifer, I'm hoping you can correct me if I'm wrong, but the amendment that we're talking about tonight essentially goes back to what we had previously. Is my recollection correct? I haven't had the chance to actually look at the old ordinance yet.
So apartments used to require a conditional use. The funeral home that Jeb mentioned, they got a conditional use.
Right, so this,
Apartment buildings, when you're transferring the entire building into an apartment. So no conditional use. They didn't enforce it at that time, but no conditional use was required for somebody to live above behind or below. But apartment buildings, like the old funeral home, required a conditional use for the reasons that have already been stated. Parking, garbage, personal stuff. Where do people put it?
But I just, in sitting down, because it was myself, Jennifer, Bill Spooner at the time, and we sort of went through the zoning ordinance, and I recall discussing this one in detail and saying, I think that we should do away with the need for a conditional use permit on apartment buildings. And my logic in advocating for that was, we want more business downtown, we need more people downtown, therefore we should make it easier for people to live downtown. And what do you have first? Do you have people who live who can then shop, or do you have shops that draw people in to live? So that's just kind of where this is born from. I certainly appreciate all of the concerns that the downtown committee has raised. I think they're well taken, but that was where the change came from and how that came into being. That's why we got to where we are, I think, today. But I do certainly appreciate the comments. I'm not opposed to going back or going to what's being proposed, if that's the recommendation of the board here. I just wanted that history on how we got to where we are today.
I think the other piece of that, and to echo a little bit of what Sean was, at that time, we had a council that was very advantageous or a big advocate for housing, that they wanted to provide, or they have the ability for more people to have housing. That was their number one goal a few years ago. So I think that's also where that came from, is that was their one goal, and they took away the conditional use.
And I'd say it continues to be. We did get our housing study, the downtown, I think Joe and I, we talked about this at that ad hoc meeting a couple weeks ago. But we got a housing study done that shows we need about 4 times as many houses built per year as we've been building in the last year. We are very fortunate as a city. Our biggest age group are those in their low 20s, with those who are living 1 or 2 people to a housing unit, so an apartment house, whatever it may be. So we do need to increase that. Personally, I think if we can increase housing while maintaining the integrity of downtown, then let's do it. But the reason why we got rid of that sort of conditional use barrier was we said that is a barrier, however easy it is to overcome, and advocated at the time to just getting rid of the barrier. So there's the history. Again, I have no problem going back if we think that's best, but that's how we got to today.
My name is Carrie Rolfus, and I own a business in town at 111 Washburn. I disagree with allowing more housing in the business district. I would rather see it be filled with businesses. Again, the parking is limited uptown. We already have issues with parking. And I would much rather see businesses. There's a lot of land, we've taken a lot of land around or subdivided it out or whatever to have more housing. I would pursue somebody building an apartment complex, but for the downtown, I would like to see it revitalized, and I think there's efforts going towards that. I know that the city has purchased the old drugstore for that purpose. You know, if you want to put apartments up above and have business below, I would love that. But I would like to see a conditional use permit for each one to have any more housing on the ground level. Thanks.
Anyone else? Once, twice?
I'd like to speak.
Go ahead, Paul. Bill?
It's an interesting subject. I just want to take 30 seconds here and read the intent, and I will circle back to why I'm reading this, so bear with me. The Central Downtown District intent page says, C1 Central Downtown District seeks to develop a mixed-use district of businesses either service or retail, and multifamily housing with the goal of creating and maintaining a local hub for activity within the city. The district serves to develop an area that is pedestrian-friendly as well as allowing for access by other means to entice local residents and out-of-town guests to visit the area and the local businesses. I think it's interesting, I was keen to listen to this because I had framed this thought in my mind earlier, and I apologize, ma'am, what was your first name?
Carrie.
Carrie. Carrie was the only one who referenced housing and not apartments. So I think that's interesting, and I can appreciate that, because my question to everyone who spoke is, how is it, and, you know, Jennifer spoke about stuff and where do you put stuff, and people spoke about parking, and how is it any different if someone buys a building and turns it into their house than if they turn it into an apartment? So I don't understand, well, I do, unfortunately, I do understand why we're talking about apartments and not houses, because everyone that's addressed this, other than you, ma'am, who used the word housing instead of apartments, is speaking in code, right? We're talking in code here, folks. You know, in World War II, the Army used code talkers, Ojibwe Indians, so that, you know, they could say things, but other people didn't really, you know, everybody knew what the code between them, but, you know, other people didn't know the code, you know. So we're talking about apartments, but, you know, in essence, I suspect we're talking about sober housing instead of apartments, because I would say there's no difference. You're shaking your head, sir, then I would ask you, what is the difference between a renter living in a building and a person buying it and turning it into their own personal house?
I think that's the same.
Okay, so I agree with you. Thank you. I agree with you. So I think we either need to ban all housing.
Downtown.
Yep, or we need to not touch it, because what this is just covert racism. This is about, I've got the floor, sorry. This is about, you know, not wanting to say the things out loud that everyone is thinking. And I think it's sad, but it is what it is. You know, it is not a perfect world. So, you know, the reality is either you don't touch it or you ban it all. And then you rewrite the intent and you don't allow people or you set up a conditional use permit for all housing, not just apartments, but all houses, you know. And then I think at some point the city needs to look at getting the houses that are in C1 out of C1. And Joe mentioned that at our last meeting, that, you know, there are those houses, those outlier houses that are in C1 for no real reason other than maybe historically they've always been in C1. But, yeah, so that's my take on that, you know, to just add a couple points, and I won't talk long, give me 5 minutes here, but, you know, C1 has been historically affordable housing, you know. Joe, our historian here, could rattle off and tell me who built these buildings and who used to own the shoe shop downstairs and live upstairs, and I would ask Joe, why did they live upstairs? Why didn't they build a house? And I promise you the answer is because they couldn't afford it. You know? So historically, those apartments, that communal living of businesses and residential has been driven by the affordability process. So I don't think we're talking about anything new here. What we're talking about is people who don't look like us, talk like us, dress like us, you know, tattoos like us. That's what we're talking about here. And I'm not going to talk in code, sorry. So that's my take on that. And my last point here is just, in general, government interference in the free market usually does not go well. It usually doesn't end well, and it doesn't have the end results that the people maybe with good intention spoke on. You know, and I think about the fact that we've already banned storage facilities in C1. And, you know, we're on our way to banning housing, okay. But what that equals is empty buildings. Empty buildings that the city will buy and turn into green space. And I like green space, doesn't bother me any. But just realize that that's the path. You know, when you take a downtown community and you limit what people can do, those buildings just don't sell. They just sit there. And, you know, the city goes and buys, unfortunately, you know, they bought the drugstore, you know, they could have bought it 3 years ago for $1, but we paid $35K now. But the reality is better late than never. But just know that that is the end result. And lastly, just one last point is, this doesn't affect me at all. Financially, it's good for me. I own buildings downtown, and a war on affordable housing makes everything I own just worth more. So I'm done buying housing. I'm done developing that stuff. I'm retired. So make no mistake, this isn't about Bill concerned about his economics at all. This is about Bill, who was a broken person, who was a autistic, broken adolescent who did a lot of drugs and has since recovered. And if I have a soft spot for people in recovery, I am guilty as charged. So I appreciate everybody listening to my blurbs, and I hope I didn't offend anyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. Anyone else for discussion? Guess at this point, I have questions for Jennifer, just stating how just because traditionally, you know how the ordinance reads, and way I understand it too, that apartments at this point are allowed above, behind, or below the retail business. Is
That is correct, outlined in 2B, yeah?
So the only thing with this change would be any apartment that would like to be on the main level of a commercial building to be required a conditional use permit.
If that's what is desired. Right now,
Pretty broad right now.
apartments would not be allowed on the storefront side. However, right above it, exclusive apartment buildings are also allowed. So if you have somebody above and you have somebody below, and you have somebody behind, and now you have somebody on the street side, it becomes an apartment building.
Do we have proposed language before us?
No, because
So I'm
Okay.
not crazy for thinking this looks identical to what we have.
this is identical, this is what you have, because I was told this was to get input.
Yep.
I was told that after this, the council and planning board would make some type of motion or guidance to direct staff to create an ordinance with what you guys came up as a conclusion. I did not want to spend city money on an attorney to develop language that you guys did not like.
And Paul, that was your intent, right, was to get, correct me if I'm wrong, but was that not your intent, was to get public input?
Yes, get public input.
I want to note, you know, when you look through the C1 ordinance, not only the intent of multi-uses, it also allows single and two-family residential,
Row houses.
row houses. So it does fit the intent right now of mixed use. But if you're going to change it, anytime we do a change, we're going to be required to do another public hearing.
So can I just ask, Joe and Jeb, is it the recommendation of the downtown committee that all housing be done through a conditional use permit? Am I correct in understanding that's the recommendation?
I don't know, to answer that, if
Or
it's
maybe you
above-
can't speak on the committee, but just yourselves perhaps, but.
If it's above it, you know, like it's allowed, it doesn't need a conditional use permit. It's just the way that states in that particular paragraph, that street level businesses, if they cannot be converted to housing or apartments, whatever you want a terminology for it, that it has to remain a business entity. That's just like if you went out into Chronic Edition and you had a house that was empty for a number of years, and somebody said, well, nobody's gonna buy this thing, I'll make a garage out of it. Can you be able to reverse that whole psychology? You wouldn't allow that. So it's the same type of thing. It's a conditional use permit for the way it's stated in there, for the street level units.
And I just want to make sure that when this comes to council eventually, that everyone's on the same page. So I'm understanding it to be any exclusive housing, be it apartment, row houses, townhouse, single family, anything that's exclusive housing, the recommendation from downtown committee is that that should go through the conditional use permit process. If it's your historic shop owner lives above because they've got to get down there in the middle of the night to open the shop or whatever it is, that stays the way it is, don't need a conditional use for that. That's the recommendation that's coming for, okay. And the planning board will recommend what it recommends, but I just want to make sure that that part at least is clear to me. Thank you.
Again, my thoughts, I guess, just speaking on behalf of a resident and the planning board member, every month we receive housing permits of roofing and construction, just like what Jennifer noted to, remodeling. So any new build of a house, residential, needs to have a permit. I don't see this being any different in a case where they have to make sure all the fire code is up to date, all the right specs are there. That's the point of the conditional use. And to remind the folks too, conditional use would follow the property itself. Interim use would follow the property owner. So in the case that a property owner would change, then they're under interim use, that use would change as well. So the conditional use, I guess, follows the property if I'm not mistaken, and I'm seeing it as, again, new residential housing need to follow the permitting and process as well. So I don't see an issue with any main floor housing on a commercially rated building having the need for a conditional use for this process to go through.
Can I just ask one thing, just because I don't think I understood you?
Yeah.
Because you stated that to the building permits, I'm just trying to wrap my head around, like, I get permits, building permits from Brad and all the time for my commercial buildings to do things, put in bathrooms, so to alter something takes a building permit, not a conditional use permit. I just want to clarify that, because it seemed like you were mixing those two together, and they're entirely different things. I mean, like, if I'm gonna do something in one of my buildings, I have to present pay a fee and have Brad inspect it, and that's how that works. So
Correct.
It doesn't require a conditional use permit, it requires a building, okay.
Correct, yeah, going through the permitting process, same thing,
Yes.
conditional use, they have a committee of the planning to review the conditional use, just like we've done multiple times before, then make the recommendation to council and have the final say. I guess the point of it, the building permit is as is, the inspector needs to call it on if it's accurate or factual or not.
That's what keeps things from being built correctly.
Correct.
I mean, keeps things being built correctly is
Correct.
the building permit, not the conditional use permit.
Correct,
Okay,
yep.
just
Thank
making
you
sure
for
I understood
clarifying that.
No, it's all good.
Anything else from the committee and or the public?
Do we need to maybe address the 3 words, retail business building? Because if there's no retail business in there, then it just becomes a building. In 2B?
So you're saying it would be apartments within a building?
Well, right now, we have buildings that don't have a business in, and they're used for housing.
Yep.
So do we need it to state retail business building?
To answer that, it's in a retail business district, even though it's empty, it's still retail business. It doesn't change because all of a sudden, you might say, well, let's have, I don't know, whatever else.
And I'm not for or against it, or I'm just making sure whatever change we make, it's very black and white.
It's a retail business district, and whether it's vacant or not, why?
And maybe it
1
just
year
needs to say
or
that.
30 days.
A business in the C1 district, a building in the C1 district.
But just to make no mistake, there are plenty of houses in C1. So if that is sitting empty, it is no different than every other building sitting empty. You can't differentiate I guess other than if you went to, there's some language somewhere about continual use, that 1-year deal, if you had, that's the only thing I can think of that would differentiate, because ultimately a building is a building, is a building.
Okay, I'm just.
Yeah, no, I understand where you're going with that. I'm just, it gets to be pretty muddy with multiple houses in C1. Yeah.
Yeah, the way they can differentiate it, because when these houses were built, it was quite a while ago that it was done. And being that this is not a perfect world, sure, there was houses that were built on lots that happened to be in the C1 district. We're past that right now, where we can make a difference in distinguishing the two. Either we rezone C1 where these residents are single-family houses into residential, and just to clean it up and make it clear, so there isn't any more confusion on this.
Yeah, I think ultimately it has to be documented, it has to be clear cut. It can't just be used as a filtering mechanism. And that's, in my opinion, in my humble opinion, that's exactly what people are striving for. They want to be able to filter out people who don't look like them, dress like them, look like them, own a house like them, have a 401k like them. That's what this is about, is a filtering mechanism.
I don't think that is. No, I'm going to push back on you, because I don't see, I hear we've got an identity crisis in the downtown district, and it's something that's been going on for many years. It's something that's been discussed since I first ran for councils. What are we going to do with downtown? How are we going to deal with it? We have the bypass, we have the rise of e-commerce, we have different ways people are going about things, and we've seen the downtown shift from the retail hub that it's been for decades and decades into a service-oriented district. And now we're looking at, and this is not Painesville's downtown, this is downtowns throughout the country are seeing this same shift. And we're going, how do we preserve what this was? Because a downtown is sort of the heart of the city. It's where the commerce comes through, it's where people gather. Traditionally, it's where people are biking and joining and meeting up. So how do we preserve that character of it while also supporting the businesses that are here, that have been here for decades and generations? This isn't about race, this isn't about excluding people. This is about preserving the businesses that are here and supporting them. And to sit here and say that we're talking about a conditional use permit because of the color of a person's skin, I think is inflammatory for unnecessary, for no reason.
Can I give you pushback on that?
Well,
Can I
who's here talking about race, Bill?
Sean,
Nobody's talking about it.
Sean has the floor.
I am. Okay, Sean, I'd like the floor next. That's fine.
No, hold on, and I don't need people to come to my back, we've got this, but I'm saying, I'm hearing from those who are speaking in favor of this amendment that this is to preserve the character of the district, and that's not about, that is not about any particular group or anything like that. That is about preserving the businesses that are here and supporting them, because in large part, that's what we got the downtown redevelopment group together to do. So that, I don't see or hear anything from the people in this room advocating for this, saying that we need to keep people out or we need to do this. And I don't get that, and I know the people in the room advocating for it, and I think I can see the visceral reactions that people are being made sick by these comments. No, I don't see it there, and I appreciate your opinion, but we're going to agree to disagree on this.
And it ain't the first time, Sean. It's all good. I'll use this as an example, and then I'll shut up. The same person that'll come across the railroad tracks and speak under their voice in their little head, say comments as they're waiting for Brente, who's a heavy-set black man, to walk from the treatment center to the rec center, and he's jaywalking, of course. That same person will drive a block and a half and politely wait for a white man to walk from the locker plant to the post office and never make that connection. And that's a fact. And that, it isn't, racism isn't somebody using the N-word, yelling it out their window. It's quiet, it's subtle, and maybe I'm wrong. Maybe all your intentions are good. Maybe it's all about business, and God bless you. I hope that's the case. And if I offended anybody, I sincerely apologize. I am one person with one opinion, and I make no mistake. I do not think that I know everything. I don't claim that. So if I offended someone, council members, board members or public, I apologize. That was not my intent.
I'd like to circle back to one thing. And Doris, this happens to do with you with your restaurant. So I remember when I came to town here, there was a greenhouse before you built on, and then there was another house behind there. But what you were doing in the meantime was adding on to your business and having a spot where it's going to look like this is a place to where you want to go and want to be in a downtown area. So basically what you were doing with the city was cleaning up some of the houses that were on the older side, and you were just improving the downtown. And I do believe we need more of that.
That is correct, that is exactly, and it was between the city and realtors that came and begged me to please purchase that house,
Yep.
to clean it up so that when people drove through on Highway 23, that they would see a positive invite into our community. And yes, I put a lot of money into that corner.
And it worked.
Cool.
Any other discussion then? Besides from the board? Okay, so then we'll close the public hearing. Open it back up to the normal business meeting to develop a recommendation for the council to consider.
Is there a page on that, or is that just ad lib? Is there an action page? No.
There is no action.
Okay. I want to make sure I didn't miss it.
Because again, I didn't know what you guys were going to decide. Whatever you decide, if you proceed with an amendment to what's currently in the books, we need to come up with some language, and then a public hearing will have to be held on that amendment. If the language stays as is, we leave here and that's it.
And what I will say, and this is the last I will say, Jacob, and then I'll give you the floor.
We got-
Is that this is now a planning meeting, so I'm going to stay silent and let the planning board take it up. Donna, I know you've been so talkative over there anyway, but I think I'll switch places, Paul, so that you can join the planning board, you and I can swap seats, but at this point, I think the council's just going to observe, the two of us that are here.
I would state this, what I said earlier, which is you either got to do everything or nothing. You know, either we do it where I guess, and then you decide, do you want to just have businesses where you could, you know, like Paul said, you know, you segregate out that housing stuff, and you just have, you don't allow any in town, I think, you know, in C1. I think that's an option, you know? You don't, but then then I think we need to work on changing the intent too. You know, if we did a, you know, conditional use permit, I think it would need to be all housing, not just apartments. Again, I think that's only fair to the people who can buy houses and the people who can't buy houses. I think then they're treated equally. That's my opinion.
Any other comments, Josh, Randy?
Yeah, I kind of agree with Bill. Either we got to address everything or just leave it the way it is.
I think if you try to split the two of them, it's never going to pass the council. They're going to have to be dealt as two separate subjects. One of them is conditional use, and the council will have to vote on that. And then if they feel the need, council-wise, to change C1 district to part of it being residential to already standing residences, then we're going to have to go in that way. So we're going to have to separate the two now to bring them to council in the future. And today, we're here just to discuss the permitted use and conditional use, and I think we should stay on subject with that one instead of trying to change the C1 district without a proper hearing.
Guess I would agree with that too, to keep them separate. I mean, they're joined together pretty much.
Right, I would rather keep them separate right now and just deal with the topic at hand right now, whether we're dealing with the permitted or conditional use.
I'd make a motion to require a conditional use permit for all housing, whether that's house, rental, or row house. I'd make a motion that be a conditional use permit, and we recommend that to the city council, but that it's specifically to all housing, not just apartments.
Okay, a motion from Bill, as he stated. Is there a second to that motion?
Doesn't look like it.
Motion failed. I would entertain a motion to recommend to council that apartment buildings will need, in the Central 1 district, requiring a conditional use permit as recommended from the Downtown Street Improvement Committee.
Is that your motion?
That's my motion.
I'll second it.
Okay, we got a motion and second. Any discussion further on that?
So this is basically as it was presented by that group for conditional use permits for any apartment, any location.
In the Central 1
In
district.
C1,
Yep.
okay, just making sure I understood.
Yep.
With amendments included by the city council. I don't know if we just want to make this really rigid, but I want to leave it open for the city council if they wanted to put an amendment in there too.
Well, we're just
I would
recommending to
recommend
the
it, so
city
that-
council, right?
But we're going to go with that then, yep.
I think any action from there, the council can consider. And
Oh, yeah, okay. That'll work.
any other discussion then? All those in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. Opposed?
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 2 to 3.
Carried, 3-2. Okay, got the recommendation. Again, next meeting, October 20th.
So I want to interject. I want you to look at that ordinance and let's change the language because we need to make sure that we get it changed the way you guys want it to say. So if you look on page 4 of your agenda, we're just going to move apartments and apartment buildings then underneath conditional use on page 7. Is that what I'm hearing? So number 2, A and B would go from page 4. 1 and 2, A and B on page 4 would go under D of page 7 and be 5 and 6.
Correct.
That was how I understood it when I voted.
Is that everybody's consensus?
That's what the motion was, and that's what was passed 3
Okay, I just want to make sure everybody's under the same understanding.
That's why I brought that up, because
Yeah.
there's also multifamily dwellings, row houses and single-family dwellings on there also, but that's something we can address in the future.
This was just
If need be.
apartment.
So, you're right, Jim. But we're looking at moving 12A and B to, where is that? Page 7.
Yeah, conditional use list.
Okay.
D. Yep.
And Jennifer is assigning the planning commission some homework, it sounds like. So
What'll happen next was we'll develop the amendment.
Yep,
We'll come back to planning for you to review the amendment. We'll set a public hearing. There'll be a public hearing on the amendment. Based on that public hearing, you'll make a recommendation to council on that amendment. They'll take the formal action to approve or deny the amendment.
so our recommendation at this point is staying at this level for now.
It is staying at this level for now,
Was that the intent?
unless you're going to move it to council for their insight before holding a public hearing. But it has to have a public hearing before an amendment is made.
And tonight's public hearing was different.
Does not qualify for that because you had no language to consider. This was simply to
Unfortunately, that's the
get,
way government works.
So that is,
this was simply to get public input on
Yep.
whether downtown apartments or buildings needed a CUP or not. This was not ordinance language.
Okay, makes sense. Any other discussion then from the committee?
We're good.
Council?
We're good.
All right, meeting adjourned. Thank you, everyone, for being here.
All righty, good to see you.
Have a good night.
Randy, good to see you again.
You too.